So we're having this baptism discussion, and I'm asked, what's my view on the Eucharist? Eucharist being the Greek word for giving thanks, and applied to the Lord's Supper, communion, whatever people want to call it. As a former missionary Baptist, I understand this question because, and a lot of people outside of that tradition understand baptism and the Lord's Supper being the only physical elements, really, of the Christian faith, why they would be something people would assume you do after you're saved, not things that do save. I even had a Presbyterian one time tell me, well, if you think baptism saves but the Eucharist doesn't, then you're being hypocritical and inconsistent, which I don't think follows. But now the Lord's Supper should be taken when we worship every first day of the week, according to the pattern we see in Acts chapter 20. I don't take the view that it's merely a symbol. I don't know how all members of the Church of Christ take it, but without going into the extreme of transubstantiation or other things like that, there is a real presence and fellowship, I believe, with Christ and in communion. It's hard to read 1 Corinthians 11 and, take away from that this isn't a very serious thing or a very solemn thing. People, don't just fall asleep or pass away for not respecting a symbol. But your question is, well, how can I say baptism saves and the Lord's Supper doesn't? See, I don't classify both of them as a sacrament. Now, I believe there is a spiritual reality to the Lord's Supper, and I think there is a spiritual reality to baptism. And I think if you press people who agree, if they say that neither one of these acts, is involved in salvation, there's still a spiritual reality to it. There's still a, what's the word? I'm struggling to remember. A sanctifying reality to it. The key difference is the unleavened bread and fruit of the vine. They symbolize the body and blood, and it's the sacrifice of Christ, the blood that saves. It's not the wine that represents the blood that saves. I don't even think John 6 is talking about the Eucharist, to be fair, so let's get that out of the way. But baptism isn't said to symbolize salvation, it's said to save, to be for the remission of sins. It's when sins are washed away. So I don't have to put one or the other in the same category. I don't have to treat them the same way if the language in the Bible treats them differently. One is something you must do to be saved, one is something people do once they are saved. This is something I had to come to terms with and realize shortly after I became a Christian, so this is just a natural question and a really good question, so I appreciate it.